Hello and welcome to the Last Looks podcast, a show where we catch up with talented hairstylists and makeup artists in the film and television industry. We'll pick their super creative brains and find out all the good stuff. Join me, your host, Jamie Lee, in finding out what's what in the hair and makeup departments around the world.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
Calling all hairstylists and makeup artists. Would you like to have a strong wig knowledge? A solid foundation to build your wig styling skills on? Would you like to gain the respect of your cast, colleagues, and employers when it comes to wig work? And feel more confident in knowing how to handle, style, and apply wigs? Well, do we have a treat for you? Introducing Last Looks Workshops. Come down to Beverly Hills and join Jamie Lee and Rob Pickens in the Last Looks Workshops experience. Spaces are limited, so be sure not to dilly-dally. For more details, visit lastlooksworkshops.com.
And now, our feature presentation.
Today, I'm speaking with Howard Berger, makeup designer and co-founder of K&B Effects Group based in Los Angeles. What did we chat about? Well, I think the question is, what didn't we chat about? Howard has been on an incredible career journey, one most people only dream of. So sit back, relax, or get those walking shoes on, or maybe you're in the car on your way to work. Either way, be sure to enjoy part one of a two-part chat with Howard Berger.
Pictures up,
Last looks. Rolling.
and action.
Welcome to the Last Looks podcast, Howard.
Why, thank you, Jamie. It's wonderful to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Now, I would like you to finish this sentence for me, okay?
Uh-huh.
Once upon a time, there was a boy named Howard, and when he grew up, he wanted to be
A monster maker.
a monster maker. And did
Oh,
you
yeah.
understand what that was?
I totally did. Absolutely. I mean, I loved movies and I loved monsters. And my dad was a complete cinephile, and he was in the film industry as well. He was a post-production sound editor.
Oh, cool.
And he loved movies. And he would wake me up in the middle of the night and say, don't tell your mom, but get up because Night of the Living Dead's on television, or there's a Godzilla movie on TV. So I would watch all these movies with my dad. And I realized that there were people that made monsters. And he was friends with a distributor at 20th Century Fox who distributed the films, and she knew I loved monsters and gave him a bunch of famous monster magazines that Forey Ackerman, used to publish, and I still have them, and I would just read over them and draw pictures and just dream of like being on set with Godzilla or Frankenstein's monster or what have you. So my dad explained to me that yes, there are people that make these creatures and these monsters and do these makeups for a living. And I was like, I got to do this. So this started about like, I don't know, maybe 6 years old. And by 8 years old, I was like full on, like, I got to do this. And, I'm lucky because I grew up here in Los Angeles in the San Fernando Valley. I'm an original 818er, which I'm very proud of, which is an area code for those of you that aren't sure what the hell 818 means.
Yeah.
But it's the original area code for the San Fernando Valley. So
Nice.
I still have my 818. And there was a makeup store called then it was Sig Friends Beauty Supply. And it was on the corner of Magnolia and Laurel Canyon. And it was a teeny tiny little place. And my grandfather, who also was very supportive, took me there one day. And it was this little shop. And it was filled with makeup supplies for film. And there were actors in there, but there was also on the walls like photos of John Chambers and Jack Pierce and doing their makeups, and then all these actors' photos. And there was a specific smell of like powder and castor oil and makeup supplies. And it like overtook me, and my heart just started pounding and pounding. And I met one of the people that worked there who was Namie, who later years opened up his own makeup store called Namie's. And Namie really, really helped me out. And he saw there was this 8-year-old kid who was holding like $20 in his hand and wanted to learn more about it. So Namie sold me Mike Westmore's book, Theatrical Makeup Techniques. And it's like a small little book, paperback with like a pink cover on it. And it shows you exactly in illustrations how to do everything, remedial. And then he sold me some alginate for life casting and some plaster and some clay. And I went home and life cast my own face, with the help of my dad. And yeah, it was crazy. And I had like a positive. It was all kind of crap, but
So
I
your dad didn't want to be your first guinea pig?
no, I
He was like,
wanted
do
it.
it on yourself.
Yeah, no, I was like, I want to do it. I want a copy of my face, and I sure wish I had that life cast. It crumbled. I used it for like 300 sculptures and
Oh
molds,
my
and
God.
eventually it was just going to fall apart. And it was just plaster of Paris. It wasn't like Ultracal or syntactic. Of course, we didn't have that then. But so I just made stuff in my bedroom, and I trashed my entire bedroom. But the big thing was that I had two parents and grandparents who were so supportive and saw that, I loved monsters and movies. I was obsessed. My mom was an artist, and she sewed me a Dracula cape.
Yeah.
And I would wear it around the neighborhood. And at one point I had knocked out all my front teeth and I just had my canines. And yeah, and I would run up and down the street in a Dracula cape, shorts, and cowboy boots. I remember it like it was yesterday. And which I think
it was yesterday.
Yeah, I might wear it to set on Monday. And I would run up and down, and my neighbors would always say, "Hi, Dracula! Hi, Dracula!" And I loved it. So my brain was 100% monsters, and I just knew, like, I'm going to do this when I grow up, and I'm going to do anything between 8 years old and 18 years old to get to that point where I can get a job as a makeup artist or a makeup effects artist to make monsters.
Yeah. I mean, you are so incredibly lucky that your parents just knew that it could be a future, that it was a job and it could happen for you.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I have friends, or acquaintances rather, who wanted to do the same thing, and their parents weren't supportive at all. It's like, oh, that's not you have to get yourself a real job. And they were very discouraged. And I don't know if many of them ended up in the industry, but I just really lucked out that my dad was in the business, and he understood the fever and curse of wanting to be in the film industry. And I think my folks thought, like, oh, it's a hobby. But then as I started sculpting more and more and making things, my parents were like, I think Howard has an aptitude for this. Like, it's not just like making some crappy, paper mache heads or whatever. He's like actually sculpting, molding, running latex, seaming, patching, painting, hair, at like, under 12 years old. And I'm like, and then, I grew up on all the Universal monster movies. Like Creature from the Black Lagoon is my all-time favorite. I mean, I think it's perfect in every way. And then discovering the Japanese monsters, especially Godzilla, and King Kong, and then, knowing who King Kong is and Mighty Joe Young. And it just grew and grew and grew. And in 1977, which was this was actually 1976, was really pivotal because my dad took me to this science fiction, horror, and fantasy convention at the Marriott at LAX. And Ray Harryhausen was there to talk about his life, and he was putting a book out, From the Land Beyond Beyond. And that's why we went. And I waited in line, and I bought the book, and I got Ray Harryhausen to sign it because I was also a huge stop motion fanatic. And then I saw a sign that said, makeup artist Rick Baker talking about The Incredible Melting Man. And I was like, Dad, can I go? I want to go see that. And that's where I first saw Rick Baker. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is a demigod. I mean, Rick Baker is the greatest ever. And that's where I started to have a better sense of like Stan Winston and Rick Baker and Dick Smith. And, and then a little bit later, Greg Canham and Rob Bottin and really, broadened my horizons and who was who, and really learned a lot. And in 1981, a book came out called Making a Monster by Al Taylor. And it's a really pivotal book in my life. And it has all these great interviews and all these great photos. And my mom bought it for me, and I kept it in my backpack, and I would take it to school. I took it everywhere. Because it was just kind of like it was like my Bible, but it was just, and I was glad I had it, because actually I would go visit like makeup stores, and there might be a makeup artist in there. Or there was I caught wind when I was a kid that there was a big union meeting downtown in Hollywood. And I took the bus there, and I waited outside of they rented like a movie theater. And I waited outside, and out walked like Dick Smith and John Chambers. And I ran up to them, and I got them to sign my book. And I was overjoyed. And I mean,
they're like rock stars.
They are. I mean, but this is also the crazy stalker shit that I would do. And like, oh my God, my heart would palpitate. And I'd see them, and Rick Baker was there, and and Tom Berman, and these guys were all really nice to me. And so I started up, an acquaintance with Stan Winston because his shop was about 2 miles away from my house,
Oh,
so
wow.
I could walk to his shop. So I called
Mm.
him one day and said, "Hi, my name's Howard Berger, and I really want to do this, and I have a bunch of stuff. Can I come visit?" And Stan said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I packed up a box and walked 2 miles to Stan's shop on Parthenia in Tampa, and knocked on the door, and Stan answered and invited me in. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And at the time, he was working on a movie called The Exterminator with Robert Ginty, and
Mm.
he was building this puppet of this guy who gets his neck slashed and the whole head opens up. And it was amazing. He showed me all this stuff. And he was also working on a movie called Something Wicked This Way Comes, which was
Mm.
a Disney film. And in there, I remember was James Cummins, who's passed away, sadly, Lance Anderson, Jim Cagle, Mike McCracken, Senior, and Stan, and they were all doing sculptures. And I didn't know what to say. So much so I feel like an idiot because Stan's like, "Do you have any questions?" And I'm like, "I don't have any questions," but I had like 100 questions.
Yeah. It's like I have
You
too
know?
many
Yeah.
questions.
And he's like, "You don't have any questions?" I'm like, "No, I don't have any questions." But yet I felt like embarrassed, like asking Stan every single question.
How old are you at this point?
I was 13.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. So that was 1977 because
Mm.
how I remember is I was bar mitzvahed in 1977. And so that was 13 because I had a Star Wars themed bar mitzvah, which was
Course.
very exciting.
Yes.
And I mean, and that's another thing too. Star Wars came out and completely changed my way of thinking because I'm like, I want to work on movies like this. I mean, no one had ever seen a movie like Star Wars.
No.
It was revolutionary, and seeing all the creatures and then learning about Stuart Freeborn and, it just kept going and going and going and feeding me like crazy. And I finally got to meet Rick Baker after 6 months of stalking him. And I couldn't catch my breath. And,
Yeah.
even now, it's like I've known Rick since I was like 14 years old. And
Oh,
he's
wow.
always been super nice to me. And I've got to work with him on Harry and the Hendersons, but I still get nervous
Mm.
around him, because I idolize him so much.
Yeah.
And I'll give a call, and before I call, my heart's beating really fast, and I'm like trying to calm myself down, and it's like, it's just Rick Baker. And I'm like, I know, but Rick Baker's,
But it's
he's
Rick
Rick
Baker.
Baker, for God's sake. So I'm just such a huge fan of everything, still at 50, at 58 years old, I'm still loving everything.
Wow. I mean, not many people can say that. So,
Yeah. I mean, I always I say it more now today for some reason, that I love doing what I do. I just don't
Mm.
always love doing it for the people that I do it for. So that's a
Makes
different
sense.
thing. But I
Yeah.
go to, like I talked to Tammy Lane, who's always my cohort on movies, and for the last 27 years. And we're always saying that it's like, I love this so much, but I'm not so crazy about who we're doing it for. But, we'll make the best of it, right?
Yeah,
So we always have a good time.
exactly.
And we do great work or try to do great work and under the limitations set forth by production sometimes. So
Absolutely. Now, I'm curious if you're doing all these sculpts and creating all these bits and pieces as a child, when did you first kind of do a full makeup on somebody else?
Well, I was lucky. Again, I'm very lucky. I have 3 younger sisters, and they were
Oh,
all my guinea pigs.
I'm
And
sure. Do
Heidi,
they
yeah.
feel lucky?
Oh yeah, it's great. Heidi, Heather, and Holly. So all 4 of us are H's.
Oh, cool.
And so Heidi was my main practice subject. So
Mm-hmm.
my eldest sister, and even if you talk to her, she would show you half her eyebrow is still missing since she's been like 6 years old. Because I latexed it and just tore it off, and it never grew back. So
Oh, boy.
there's like a little piece of her eyebrow that's gone. But yeah, I would do these makeups, and most of them were like casualty makeups, and then I did some like sort of out of the kit old age makeups, which are all horrible. And I just would play around with stuff. And I remember I shot a bunch of photos of my sister all beaten up, and I did it I sculpted like a little like swollen eye and ran it in slip latex and glued it on her, and I took the film to like a 1-hour service, and my parents got a phone call
Uh-oh.
that there was child abuse. Although I would look at it and go, that looks like a shitty makeup. But somehow some 14-year-old kid working at Fromex, 1-hour photo, thought it was real. And he told his manager, and the manager called my parents, and my parents said, "No, my son's just bizarre and loves makeup and monsters. So it's a makeup."
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, I would do everything, and I had like a little portfolio, and I learned early about presentation, and I tried to photograph things in the best possible light and in a kind of a cool scenario. And I learned that kind of from Steve Johnson, believe it or not. When I went to go visit Rick Baker when I was like 14 years old, Steve was working there at the time, and he was probably 18 years old or 19 years old. And he showed me his portfolio, and everything was so amazing and so beautiful and photographed so well. And like there was a zombie coming out of the ground, and there was a tombstone, and there's fog on the ground. I'm like, oh my goodness, it's really amazing presentation.
Yeah.
And that's really where I was like, oh, okay. And that's what I always tell people, like, because I get a lot of emails and a lot of correspondence. And it's one of the things I always point out, like, make sure you photograph your stuff in the best possible scenario, and don't like do a makeup on your friend and take a photo in the bathroom or next to a refrigerator, or, because it just doesn't. And I get a lot of those. And I'm like, okay, guys,
Set the scene, guys. Set the scene.
Yeah, set the scene. There you go. Set the scene. I'm going to use that. No, that's a good one. Set the scene, and it's true, and it adds so much. It's been very interesting to see how things have changed, and from my generation to the generation we're into now. But it's a whole new world.
So you leave high school.
Yeah.
And what do you do?
Well, all through high school, I maintain a correspondence with Stan Winston and Dick Smith and Rick Baker.
Yeah.
And
I didn't think that was going away.
Yeah, that never goes away. It was 24/7. My walls were like, my parents didn't even realize till I moved out that there were actually walls in my room. They just thought it was just massive posters and just monster masks hung on the walls. But I really stayed tight with Stan Winston, who was really encouraging and very supportive through my teenage years. And he said, when you graduate high school, let me know and I'll have a job for you. So 18 years old, I graduated high school, and I called Stan and I said, Stan, I graduated, yada, yada, yada. And he said, okay, start tomorrow. And I was like, oh my God. And he's like, okay, now I'm going to give you the talk. We start at 8:00, not 8:01, not 8:02, 8:00. I'm here, you're here. And I was like, absolutely, Stan, absolutely. So I got there every morning at 7 a.m., sat in the parking lot in case Stan got there early, and then I'd go in and get ready for the day or even start working early. And but I never, ever would be late, and I'm never ever late in my life, and I think that stems also from my mom was always late and it used to drive me nuts and embarrass me, and anybody that works with me will tell you how that I am always early. And whenever I'm on set, it's always at least an hour early. I get there. I don't expect anybody else to, but I do, and set the scene, and get everybody ready, and make sure when people walk in the trailer, they know where they're doing, and everything's out, and coffee's already on the brewer, and just get your head wrapped on it. So I always say, if you're on time, you're late. Right. And, my kids have followed suit, which is wonderful. Of course, that they made fun of me all the time. Like, Dad, we're 3 hours early to the movie. I'm like, I know, but just in case. But anyhow, I got hired at Stan Winston Studios at 18 years old. Amazing. And at the time he was working on Aliens and Invaders from Mars. And
what?
So,
See?
Yeah, it's crazy. I know. Well, people like, so what did you first work on? I'm like, Invaders from Mars and Aliens, And I also was, I was lucky I worked at some of the other smaller shops, like John Beekler, who at the time was doing all these movies for Charlie Band, like Ghoulies and Space Troopers or whatever it was, or, all these crazy things, Eliminators, just wacky doodle stuff. Yeah. And it was really, really fun. And I learned a lot. I got to meet a lot of great people. I met Mitch Devane, who's an amazing sculptor, and Everett Burrell, who's now a big visual effects guy, and John Vulich, who since has passed away, sadly, and Bill Butler. And I met like the core heart of my friendships that have still remained. John Beekler's working on like some of the weirdest, lamest stuff ever, but it was a great, great experience. And John was always great. But working at Stan's, I got to meet all the guys, Shane Mahan and John Rosengrant and Alec Gillis and Tom Woodruff, and and then I met Shannon Shea and Steve Wang and Matt Rose, and guys that again I've stayed in touch with my entire adult life. And it was a great experience. And Stan was a great, great leader. And I really took a lot from him, where he would always say, are you having fun? Are you having fun? And I always say, I'm really having a lot of fun. And that was what was important to Stan is, we'd be learning, we'd be doing the best we can. We'd be doing our daily job, which usually was like from 7 to 7 for $450 a week flat.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. But as long as we were having fun. And Stan was always there. And even if we had to work like a Saturday or a Sunday, which we did here and there due to actor availability, Stan was always there. And he always brought food in the mornings for all of us, to have a little catered thing, because he really took care of us, and he was a great leader. I really learned how to lead from Stan.
And so early on. So that's amazing.
Very early on, it really
Yeah.
stuck. And I always felt like I had leadership qualities. I just wasn't sure how to implement them. And Stan really led my hand, and I would just watch him. And I always said, like, if I ever open up a studio of my own, I'm going to run it like Stan runs his. I really liked that a lot. And it was just a great environment, and I grew so much. And in that time, then I, would see the job ended, and I'd go off and work for somebody else. I worked for Tom Savini in Pittsburgh, and that's where I met Greg Nicotero, and we started our lifelong friendship together. And met Bob Kurtzman prior to leaving, like the day before, and Bob and I started our friendship forever. It's, I got to work everywhere. I worked with some great people. I worked for Kevin Yeager, who I think is a genius beyond genius, and he was a great boss and really fun and really super dedicated and specific and detail orientated.
Yeah. I mean, it certainly seems like a good way to go about it, like not just staying with your one company and moving around and working with different people to learn different skills. And
that's how we used to do it. I mean, we would just all go job to job to job. But, the difference, this is something that's really important, and that we were all friends. And there wasn't a competition, and we weren't mean to one another. Everybody was there. If I wasn't sure how to do something, I could go to Steve Wang and go, Steve, I'm trying to figure this out. How do you go about it? And Steve would explain, okay, well, I do this, this, and this. Or if I was sculpting something, and I'd go to Matt Rose and go, Matty, I don't understand how you get this to feel so flesh-like. And he would show me, and then I'd have people that ask me questions, and you start to nurture one another. We supported each other.
Yeah.
And sadly, I don't see that in these days.
Yeah, it's kind of mind blowing as to what makes somebody go in the opposite direction.
Well, I see a lot of people being mean.
Yeah,
and it really is disheartening. And when I run a team, if I find anybody is being disrespectful to anybody, they're done. I will not tolerate it. I mean, after 1-2 conversations, or warnings rather, not conversation, warnings.
Yeah.
And that goes from, anybody on my team to being rude to accounting. And then the ultimate death for me is being rude and disrespectful to PAs.
Yeah.
And if I catch wind, that person is done forever. Like, I will never talk to that person again, because that shows me how shitty a person they are, that they can't be respectful. I look at we're all important to a film. Like, we can't make a movie without PAs. We can't make a movie without background. We can't make movies everybody is essential to the filmmaking process, and no one is above anybody else. And somehow people have gotten into this mindset, like, oh, being a makeup artist, we're celebrities. No, we're not. We're there to do a job. We do the job, and then that's that. It's like, guys, get some perspective on what we're doing. We're not more important. We're not, because people say, like, well, that's their face is on the screen. I'm like, yes, I get it. But there's a lot to it. There's a lot of different departments, so we all will be respectful. And Tammy Lane and I, and really, really, really push that on set, and we get so upset. I always say I'd rather work with somebody, maybe they're not the greatest artist or makeup artist or talent, but they're really kind, and they work really, really hard, and they're there for you, opposed to somebody who's amazing but is a real shit and doesn't want to be a part of the team and just thinks they're more important than anybody else. And I'm like, and I have had those people, and I have weeded them out, be it at K&B, the company I own with Greg Nicotero, or on set. And I mean, I really, really, really get livid. My younger brother, Bradley, he was a PA. He's now out of the production industry. He's doing other things these days, which is great. Yeah. But his first job, I got him his first job on Friday the 13th, part something or another. And I said, Brad, if you mistreat any background and I catch wind of it, I'm going to kick the shit out of you.
Yeah.
And I said, learn that. And Brad became a really magnificent AD, a second AD, and he was always respectful. And he hopefully the fear I put into him lived. But I was like, don't do it, man. Just be everybody. I said, everyone has a mom, has a father, might have a wife, might have a husband, has children. How do you think those people surrounding them would feel if they saw you berating them? and I think about that and it really hurts my heart.
Yeah.
And because I've seen like ADs yelling at background, and I'll go over and I'll go, dude, you do that again, I'm going to knock you out. I'm dead serious. I said, I don't give a shit if I get fired. It will be worth knocking you out.
I know that
And
just the belittling in public
yeah,
is like, whoa,
yeah,
no,
just
no,
being
just
mean. I
yeah,
just don't
check
understand it.
yourself.
Well, and it's worse now after post COVID, because I was really hoping like, okay, we're going to get back to life,
Mm,
and it's a moving forward. I never go, we're going back to normal. There's no back to anything. It's like, let's move forward. And
hmm
I was really like, okay, people will be really happy and to be back and doing stuff and seeing people, and it was opposite. People came back angry and mean and messed up and just really, I don't know. It's really disheartening. And I'm like, I think I'm going to hire a lot less people on my cruise, and I'll just do as much work as I can and make up as many people as I can. Because I have no, it's one of the things like the people on my crew. There's no like, oh, you're doing the lead guy and that's it. You're not a personal, for fudge sakes. You're going to do number two, and then you're
mm,
going to go to the background tent and do some background, and that's how
yeah,
it's going to work. I do it. I do background and whatever it takes, whatever gets the job done, and
yeah,
and how we facilitate the needs of production is what's important. Not that I need to order my. Oh, that's the other thing too. My team is not allowed to ask any PAs for breakfast or anything or food.
hmm
They have to leave the trailer and go get it, or if they show up late, then they have to take their NDB, which of course production loves. And I find it insulting. Their job, the PA's job, the AD department's job is not to get us food. It's to take care of, make sure that everything's running smoothly. And people want to get food, show up early. There you go. Get out of bed or eat something at home. But it's a courtesy, and it's stuff like that. It's those little things, and I try to really bestow that on the people working with us.
mm,
And I never say for, because nobody works for me, but everybody I have on my crew works with me.
yeah.
And I always like to hire people that are better than me. Like, again, I'm going to go back to, this isn't like a Tammy Lane love fest. But
Go Tammy!
I just think the world of her, and she's such a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And, at work and off work, because she's, such a dear, dear friend. But, Tammy she's the greatest. And I just watch what she does, and she works so hard, and,
Mm,
and she doesn't have those, attitudes or pretenses. She is in the muck 24/7, and I couldn't ask for somebody better. But yeah, I mean, I looked to her and I'm like, here's somebody who's worked her way up the ladder from the bottom, like
mm,
came to K&B and was like literally cleaning molds and floors, and till Greg took her to set one day and on Vampires, John Carpenter's Vampires, just to like help clean up blood. And then he kind of trusted her to do more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And then I had a show, and he's like, have you considered taking Tammy to set? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And I did. And, it's people like that. So, I feel like it's sometimes like Tammy and I could just do a show completely together because, just do everything.
yeah.
And then we can avoid any sort of issues. But,
Just negative vibe.
yeah, I don't like it. But what's good is also we hire people that we know very well. I have a great cachet of people that we bring in. Like, if we're going to do Orville, the Orville with Seth MacFarlane,
Mm,
I always call like Todd McIntosh and Steve Prouty and Jamie Kellman and Chris Gallagher and, people that, Erica Prius, people that are really, really super, super strong and super, super kind
yeah.
and fun people, and I want to be on set now and hang out with my buddies. That's what I like to do. It's fun. I always say number one priority is fun, and then we'll get around to the work. We all know how to do the work, and we're really good at it, but let's first have fun. It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
So
And you
we
can do
like
it at the
that.
same time. No problem.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
So going back to K&B,
Yeah.
how did that come about? What made you think of starting that?
Well, I met Bob Kurtzman. I got hired to go to Pittsburgh to work with Tom
Mm,
Savini on Day of the Dead back in 1984. And I was working for John Beekler at the time. So I told John, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go do the show, my first location job. And John said, okay, well, that's great. And but you need to find somebody to replace you. And the day before, this doofus guy, Bob Kurtzman, had been in the shop. He had just graduated from Joe Belasco. And I saw his card, and I'm like, well, I'm sure Bob can work here at Beekler's. It'll be great. So I called Bob, and he's like, offered him my position. He said yes. And he and I met up for dinner that night and hit it off. And the next morning I was on a plane to Pittsburgh. Right off the plane, I met Greg Nicotero, and we became best friends. And so anyhow, after that show ended, I told Greg, I said, you should move to LA, dude. let's move to LA and you'll meet my friend Bob Kurtzman. And why don't we get a house and we'll rent it all together? And that's what we did. We rented a house in Reseda, California. It was a terrible house. It was like 1 bathroom and 3 bedrooms for 3 guys. And but we were young and had no money. And, we were all poor because we were probably making literally $300 a week flat.
Yeah.
But that didn't matter because we could pay our rent and buy beer and Kentucky
that's all
Fried
you
Chicken.
need.
So
Yeah.
and what more do you need in life? So we all started working together, and then we worked together over at Mark Shostrom's on Evil Dead 2 and really kind of ran the roost on that show. Even though it was Mark's show, we were on set most of the time, Greg, Bob, and myself orchestrating everything. And Mark was working on the Henrietta makeup. There was a lot of prep on that. So he was pre-painting everything. He'd be in the room doing that. And Bob, Greg, and I were running the set for him. Then that show ended, and then Greg and I went on to go do Creepshow 2 in Prescott, Arizona. Bob didn't want to go. He had just met somebody, and he's like, oh, no, dude, I don't want to do more location. I'm going to go back home with Kathy. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So Greg and I did that, and then we came back, and, we worked a little bit here and there, and I was working for Kevin Yeager, and they were back working at Mark Shostrom's on Phantasm 2 and Deep Star 6. And we met for dinner one night, and I said, why don't we take a chance and start our own company? And Greg's like, yeah, I think it's time because we're supervising everybody's shows. We're doing all the work. We're, communicating and connecting with production and the director to make it all happen every day. And we're not earning any money really. And I mean, at the most, I think I was making $800 flat a week and doing ridiculous hours on set.
Yeah.
We decided to start K&B, and we took a chance. And a friend of ours, Scott Spiegel, who was the co-writer of Evil Dead 2, had called Greg and said, hey, I'm going to do this movie called Intruder. It has no money. We're just shooting it in an old grocery store, and it's about a killer, and we need some makeup effects. Can you recommend anyone? And Greg said, yes, me, Howard, and Bob, And so we did it for like $700. But we said, hey, we want, or in lieu of money, we want a credit. We want a front screen credit that says special makeup effects by Kurtzman, Nicotero, and Berger, EFX Group. That's what it was when we were all 3 together. And we got our first credit. And then word spread that, hey, there's these new guys in town. They're really cost effective and they do great work. And, they're super nice guys and they're super fun to work with. And we just kept doing all these really low budget horror films, but it didn't matter. And then we got a small little shop, and then we got a bigger shop, and then we got a bigger shop, and then a bigger shop, and a bigger shop. And at some point, I want to say it was like 18 years ago, Bob left the company to go raise his kids back in Ohio, where he was from.
Yeah.
And so then it just became Greg and I, and we were on the cusp of, doing so many things like, these big films and connecting with, Robert Rodriguez and Andrew Adamson. And, in that period, we ended up really kicking into high gear and moving out of like these low budget horror films into bigger films like Sin City and Dusk Till Dawn and the Chronicles of Narnia and, all the stuff Quentin was doing. And
all the good stuff.
So, yeah, really great stuff. And we started to, we went from like, oh, the gore guys to like, these guys are serious,
Yeah.
So yeah, for Greg and I, it's 34 years in February this month, 2022. So
Wow.
34 years we've had K&B. A lot of people thought we were going to fail right out of the gate.
Nice.
And made fun of us, but I think most of those people are not in the industry anymore.
Okay.
And never got to live their dream or never opened up a shop. So
Greg,
yeah, stuck on this. Oi, oi. But Greg and I, we maintained our dream and kept moving forward and built I think a really cool company, and we've employed thousands of people, and we've worked on hundreds and hundreds of movies and TV shows, and I think developed some really cool things, and I hope the people that worked with us enjoyed it and learned a lot, and also felt like they were part of the K&B family, while they were at K&B. So,
sure.
And that's how it started. And the thing too is, I think Greg and I always kept in mind that we were not bigger than the company. Which means that no matter what, the company was the main priority. It wasn't about Greg, or it wasn't about me, or, and when Greg and I are not on set, we're at the shop.
Yeah.
And we love being at the shop, and we love being with everybody. We love working in the shop and, doing what we need to do. So if Greg is not on location, Greg's there at 7 a.m. and he leaves, at 4 p.m. Same as me. I get there around the same time, and we work all day with the guys, and it's really, really great. I saw in the 90s, some of my competition or my competitors or fellow shop mates who had studios felt they were bigger than the shop. And I saw the shop start to fall apart and go out of business. And it was because they're like, oh, the shop runs itself, And,
I
I
don't
don't
know
even go
what
to
runs
that.
itself.
Yeah, nothing runs itself. You have to, my dad taught me earlier, like no one cares more about your business than you.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me, and it's true. And that's why, and I saw Stan at the shop every single day. I saw Rick Baker at the shop every single day. Kevin Yeager. There wasn't anybody I worked for when I was coming up those 6, 7 years, first years of working in the industry,
Yeah.
that were not at the studio every day working. And that really made an impression on me. And so, I'm up at 5:30 every morning. K&B opens at 7 a.m. and I'm there by 6:30, and I go in the sculpting room and I start the coffee. And so the pampered sculptors come in and they have coffee in the morning. And no, they're not pampered. They're all dynamite guys and gals. So yeah, I live my life this way. I have a great wife who keeps me super grounded, and my kids, and I don't know. I just like for my birthday this year, which was December, I bought myself a birthday present. I bought like a Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper helmet that has a sound chip. And like, to me, that was super fun. I'm looking at him right now in my office. I'm like, how cool is that? And I literally walked around like for 2 days wearing the Darth Vader helmet, torturing my wife.
Yeah.
And, telling her like, you must listen to me. You must make dinner now or you will suffer, She's like, Howard, just go away. Okay.
Yeah.
Leave it to me.
Like,
you are
go and
part
have
of a
fun
rebel.
somewhere else.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But she's used to it. I walk around and I love masks. Like I love monster masks, and I used to make them all the time. I should probably do it still. And always wearing masks. And my wife's like, can you not come around the corner and look at me quietly wearing that mask? I'm like,
Total creeper.
Oh yeah, totally. Stand outside by the mailbox at night, wearing a mask. People are like, what the hell?
It's just how.
But yeah, it's still part of being that kid. I still feel like, I'm that 13-year-old kid bouncing up and down. And a lot of the guys in my industry that were like, I always look at Norman Cabrera, who's an unbelievable artist. And God, he's so great. And he is like the most bouncy kid in the world. And he's as old as me. We're both like 57, 58.
Yeah.
And I just always like, Norman's always excited and bouncy. And it's so fun to watch. And yeah, it's great. Our dreams came true. We grew up and became monster makers, and we're still monster makers. And maybe the job doesn't always entail being a monster maker, but I love makeup. I love being a department head. I love running it all. I love connecting with production, and I love actors. And yeah, there's
I mean, it's a lot to juggle, isn't it? It's great that you have a business partner with the shop and everything, because man, I can't even imagine doing that.
Well, yeah, and I've got great people that help run. There's a really talented guy named Kerry Jones who is our shop supervisor, and Greg and I couldn't do it without him. And we have a great office staff with Veronica Owens and Reggie and all of them and Randy, and we just have people that are there to support us, and that's what's important. They understand the importance of keeping the shop going in the manner Greg and I want it to go.
Yeah, and
they're really great. And we couldn't do it because Greg and I are rarely in the shop together. I've been lucky to be home right now and be in the shop, and Greg should be back, in March sometime, and he'll probably be back for a short period of time. But nowadays the job takes us away. We just have to go wherever we have to go to do it, which is great. But yeah, when we get back to the shop, it's really fun. We're so happy to be back, and it's exciting, and we get to see all the gang, and it's good.
Well, that support must go both ways. Them supporting you, they must feel supported in return to be able to.
I hope so.
I'm sure, otherwise maybe they wouldn't be there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Listen, again, it's different mindsets for different age groups. So, I've got people at the shop that have worked there for 30 years, and they are in the same mindset I am. And then sometimes we'll test the waters and have people that aren't the same mindset, and that could become, it's a little disheartening, and it's just a different way of thinking and a different way people were raised and what they were exposed to growing up, and whatever their influences were, and whoever inspired them were obviously different than the types of people we had inspiring
just their
us.
expectations too of what they should be getting out of something, maybe.
Well, yeah, and the fact is, to me, I just always feel grateful to be working in the film industry, where I think
Mm,
sometimes people will come in and not understand why are they not in the art room or why are they not going to set, and it's like, well, you just got out of school
yeah.
and
Hang on.
this is your first or second job and you don't know much, but why don't you take this opportunity to learn and look at what you have instead of worrying so much about what you don't have. It's tough. I was talking to a couple other makeup people about this, like, who are we going to pass the baton to,
Mm,
because I mean, we're not going to do this forever. Greg and I aren't going to be like, when we're 80 years
yeah.
old in the shop, for goodness sakes.
Mm.
Hopefully when we're 65 we won't be in the shop, but I mean, there are people like there's Arian, who is amazing, Mike Marino, who's amazing. There's a handful of people that are certainly up and comers. I mean, they're beyond up and comers, actually, excuse me. They're the other generation, but they're so great and have the right mindset. Like, to me, I don't Mike Marino, who's based in New York,
Yeah.
who did Coming to America, and he's got Batman coming out, and I
Hmm.
mean, he knocks it out of the park every single time. And I just look at him and I'm like, that's like, he's the new Dick Smith to me. Like, his work is that level, and maybe and beyond,
Mm.
because Mike has really pushed himself, him and Mike Fontaine and their company, Pro Effects, and I'm just always blown away by the work they do. And then Arian, is just amazing as well. And there's these guys that are just reinventing the wheel, and that makes me super, super happy. And they have the right mindset, and they had the right influences like Dick Smith and Rick Baker and
Yeah, I was
Stan
about to say
Winston.
that because I spoke to Mike and talking to him about his story, very similar to yours as well.
Hmm.
Just like finding those mentors and
Yeah.
just sucking them dry of information. Like, tell me everything. And him talking about how messed up the rug in his
Yeah.
bedroom was
Yep.
because of how much stuff he'd spilt on it because he was, building and sculpting and doing everything
Hmm.
in his bedroom as a kid. So
Yeah.
it's nice to hear that passion and that drive is still kind of continuing
Oh,
through the
absolutely. And
generations.
I think, I listened to the podcast with Mike, matter of fact, and it's true. Here's the difference. Like, we all taught ourselves. We
Mm,
all destroyed our bedrooms. We
mm,
all destroyed our mother's ovens.
yeah.
But I think it's the education that we have, a lot of people coming out of into the industry who stem from the schools, and
Mm,
they go into it having, like, I think I like this,
mm,
and they do it and they learn the curriculum, and it's all they know. They don't go home and I mean, I'm generalizing.
yeah.
I from what I have observed
Yeah.
by looking at people's books, all that a lot of them have is just the work they've done at the school and within the have to of the curriculum. And I always ask, like, I don't want to see what you did at school. I want to
Mm,
see what you did when you went home.
yeah.
And
Don't
there's
show me
very
your bare minimum.
Exactly. And I always stress, like, they always go like, well, what should I have in my portfolio? I said, there's not like a prerequisite. Like, you need to have one Planet of the Apes makeup and one scab knee and a vampire. It's like, you need to figure out what you want in your book and what you feel best represents you. And I always say, show me quality, not
Mm,
quantity. I would rather see 5 photos of something really good than 20 photos of something really crap.
yeah.
And like, I don't need to see 30 photos of one sculpture, like, and this is what it looks like 3/4, and this is what it looks like back of the head. I'm like, I don't give a flying shit.
Yeah.
How about, let's do it and show me the finished thing, and
Mm,
then I know that you've sculpted it, molded it, ran it, painted it, haired it, da 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 da.
seen it through.
Yeah. I also have an aversion to, and I think it's a great training ground, like RBFX, which I think is great. Roland is very smart. He produces really beautiful stock pieces. I always look at him like, God, it's really great. And he's got amazing sculptors providing. But I wish that people would understand that, including those makeups that Roland and his artist designed
Mm,
and did all the work for, sculpted, molded, and ran, they don't apply to, in my mind, don't apply as viable pieces of your work, because you as the makeup artist, you glued it down and painted it,
hmm.
and that's it. And it's kind of paint by numbers. It's like if you brought me a paint by numbers painting and went, look what I painted,
Yeah.
but you didn't do it, you didn't design it, you didn't figure it out, you didn't troubleshoot it. You bought these appliances and you glued them to somebody's face, and you did a good job or bad job, and then took photos and posted them all over Instagram. And I just don't feel it counts. I don't count it like, oh wow, you really did a great job applying Roland's design and sculpture and mold making and run. It's disheartening to me, and I will always say to people like, do your own thing.
Yeah.
Sculpt something, even if it's just a nose, or not just even noses are the hardest things because
Yeah.
they sit on your face. Nothing, and nothing is just and nothing is simple. Everything is
Yeah.
difficult. Trust me,
Yeah.
everything's a nightmare. Even like, hey, we got to rig up a blood tube. Oh God, this is gonna suck. Tammy, you do it. But yeah, I really wish that people weren't so institutionalized about it. Like, go outside your comfort zone. Go outside the safety of whatever it is, and maybe instead of spending a lot of money at a makeup school, maybe take half that money and go buy supplies and do stuff in your bedroom, or do it in your apartment, or do it in your house, or just do stuff on your own, because you're gonna learn so much more. Like early on when you asked how I started, and I got that book, Mike Westmore's Theatrical Makeup Techniques.
Yeah.
I did everything in the book the way it was written. And then the next time I changed things that I felt worked better for me, and then so on and so on. So I ended up developing my own thing. Same with the Dick Smith makeup course. There were times where I would like reference stuff and I do it. It didn't quite work for me. And then I would alter it. And I'm sure Mike Marino will say the same thing. And just because it worked for Dick Smith doesn't mean it works for you.
Yeah.
And then you find different ways like, you know what? If I add this much to the blood, photo flow or whatever, it works actually better for me, or I like this color better. And you have to, fine tune it for what works best for you. It's not like this is exactly the way Dick says it has to be, and that's that. I mean, Dick encouraged people to like, here's the base, and now figure out the rest of the shit,
Yeah.
And I wish it was more of that, because I see people now who don't make the effort to learn on their own. They have to be told everything. And with the advent of, YouTube and all this, like, well, I'm going to watch a couple of YouTube videos. I'm like, how about not? How about, I've given people head forms and clay. And I said, go sculpt something tonight. And then like a week later, I'm like, did you do anything? No, not yet. I'm just kind of thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? That's a totally lame excuse. Go home, open the bag, and start throwing clay on the head. And if it sucks, tear it off and do it again. But what are you afraid of? I stop being so afraid. And know what? Maybe that has to do with Instagram and Facebook. People post stuff and they get, negative criticism. Well, don't post everything. Why are you posting shit? I've seen people post things that have like the worst edges, and they point out like really bad edges today, but wanted to post this. I'm like, why are you posting that? That doesn't make me want to hire you. It's like, you obviously don't know how to glue pieces down. So why don't you do a good job and then send me photos instead of posting them for your 357 followers to like or not like, and then you feel depressed and you're like, I must have sucked. It's just not the way to do it. It's frustrating, because I want to make sure this industry continues forward. But Mike Marino and Arian can't do it by themselves. So
no. I was going to say about the pre-made pieces and stuff. I mean, even if an artist, they know that they don't necessarily want to sculpt or actually design or create, but they want to be the ones applying and painting.
Yes.
Do you think it's good for them to do all the stuff that needs to be done beforehand, just to get a feel for like,
Absolutely.
if they do get pieces that aren't working right, maybe they'll have a better idea of why?
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, I've given pieces to people at K&B, and I'm like, hey, take these and go practice, like, and then they do or they don't. Usually they don't. It's frustrating. During the pandemic, I got a call from a makeup artist, a diverse makeup artist in my union, who said, you never hire so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. And I said, well, I didn't realize so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so did makeup effects or was even interested. They've never reached out to me. Well, they don't, they're afraid to. And I said, well, why is this my problem if they're afraid to reach out to me to say, oh, we'd love to learn how to do this? And I said, okay, well, I'm going to tell you what, I'm not working, I know, for the next 6 months because I'm stuck in my house, and so is everybody else. So I sent out, and this is real, I've said this to a couple people, and I felt so discouraged. I sent out 60 emails to makeup artists in Local 706 that felt like they hadn't had the opportunity to know how to do this.
Yeah.
And I said in my email, I am willing to mentor anybody who's interested during the pandemic and forward. And please respond. And we'll do a lesson a day via Zoom. I'm great with it. I'll do one-on-one. I can do whatever. I said, I'm willing. I hear from the community that you guys don't have the opportunity. So I'm going to give the opportunity. So I emailed 60 members.
Yeah, an opportunity which I think people would
Which
almost
is unheard of.
kill for.
Yeah. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got to do this. I just got to do this. So out of 60, I heard from 4 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I handed out first an out of the kit assignment, like, and all 4 did it, and they did a good job. And I, said, oh, well, try this, this, and this. And then it went to 3, and then it went to 2, and then it went to 1. And I even went to the shop and I pulled transfers and put them in a box and put, of different skin tones, because I felt like it was important to see how this might work and this might work on somebody. And I FedExed the boxes to everybody who was, and, I think 1 or 2 people did it, and then that was about it. And I've stayed in touch with a couple of them, which has been great. A couple of the makeup artists, but I'm being told by somebody that diverse makeup artists in 706 don't get opportunity. And I gave an opportunity to 60 people who didn't respond. And I had 4 people who were really good people, but it then just kind of petered out, not because of me. I had everything set to go. Other transfers, I had silicone appliances, I had foam appliances, I was send blood to people. And I was like, wow, well, that tells me a lot. That tells me a lot. So, anybody that's listening to this should realize that if they want to make this happen, they got to do it. They got to step up to the plate. It's not going to be handed to you. You don't deserve anything. Nobody deserves anything. Everybody has to earn it, and that's a word I hate, deserve. When I'm like, well, I deserve this. That's a hideous word. There are 2 words I hate the most: deserve and alimony. So those are horrible. And luckily, alimony is not in my vocabulary anymore, thank God. But deserve is a disgusting, vile word, because nobody deserves anything, and you earn it. And so if you want to get to a level, if you want to get hired to work on a big prosthetic show, then you have to earn it. It's not going to be handed to you.
You got to go bust some doors down, man.
Dude, listen, I'm trying. I hire people based on their merit.
Yeah.
And that's what I look at. And I'm open to whatever. You know this, Jamie. The world of makeup and hair is like the island of misfit toys. It is a amalgamation of every walk of life, and that's why I always get upset. We're Hollywood is not inclusive. I'm like, have you been to a makeup trailer lately? Yeah. It's if you're into this, then that's the requirement.
Yeah.
We don't look for specifics. I'm probably sparking some sort of issue here talking like this, but I have to, because it's so upsetting to me. But I've had productions, and I'm sure all of us have, where production has come to us and said, you really need to hire people of diversity. And I'm like, I do hire people. I've been hiring people of diversity since the 80s, since I started. Yeah. And I said, I can't pull people out of their home and go, today you're going to be a makeup effects artist. Sadly, in local 706, and I don't know how it is in the other unions, but there is very, very few makeup effects artists of diversity. And Kerry Jones, who I said works at K&B, is 706, and he's one of the very few people of color that do what we do. And on the last job, I had a producer say, you need to bring in Black people to work in your department. I said, there are no Black people to work in my department. And I said, I can't go and pull people out of their homes and put a brush in their hand and make them stand in the trailer and work 18 hours a day if they don't have the interest in doing it. I said, I think the initiative is 100% correct, and we should be opening up the doors for anybody that wants to do this and has the aptitude to do this. But they're doing it the wrong way. The industry is doing it the wrong way. The studios are enforcing this to the point of detriment to the production and to the individual departments.
And I think it might just take time too, though, Howard. I agree. They've finally switched on the light bulb and gone, oh, maybe we need to do this. Then hopefully things will move more in that direction, right?
Absolutely. I think if people see somebody like them doing a specific job, they're more apt to going, oh, well, shit, I guess I can do it. How many Black children saw Obama and said, so I can be president of the United States?
Yeah.
That is a massive impact and important. And I've given a lot of a lot of like in-person demos lately to people that may have not been exposed to this. And maybe that sparks something in their minds, and saying over and over again, anybody can do this. If you want to do this, you can do this. Anybody. It's not just for people like me. It's people, anything, and we encourage it. I think it's so important, but the studios have not done this the right way, and they should let the crew people and the artists really promote it, and because you want to get those people, and you want to get the people that want to do it, that have an aptitude for it. It's a difficult thing, and I think everybody's heart's in the right place. It's just sometimes you can't dictate it to people, and it's going to have a reverse effect. And listen, my crews are primarily female.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason. I don't know why. They just are, because I find that I really like working with those artists. I don't care if they're men, women, whatever. I don't really give a crap, as long as they can come and do the job, and they're great people, and I've found some great people of all different types, different races.
However many years ago, you wouldn't have had a team of women.
Well, there weren't a lot of women,
So...
Erin Kruger and Camille Calvé were the first women in the shops back in the 80s, and they rose and worked hard, and they earned, and with the rest of us, Erin worked side by side with me and everybody else, and she got to a level at a certain point, as we all did at a certain point, and she made her department very diverse and approachable, and gave people opportunity. We all have given people opportunity. You just got to keep with it. It's not going to all happen overnight. It's just a mindset. You got to just get into it and go like, this is what I got. It's got to be in your blood too. Like you have to you're going to die if you don't do makeup or makeup effects or hair or what have you. I'm like feverish about it. And those are the people I like to surround myself with, are people that love movies and love doing this and are great at it. And so, it's a prickly pear right now. And I'm a white middle-aged Jew from the Valley. So I'm like the last guy people really want to hire, supposedly. But, I make my presence known on set, and I do. I try to lift as many people up as I can. All of us do. And within my generation, we lift, you got to be lifted up, but you have to step up to be lifted up. I can't lift you up if you're not stepping up. Yeah. It's vitally important. That's something Todd McIntosh had said to me when we had this conversation. And he's like, you have to step up to be lifted up. And I'm like 100%. And I've given those opportunities a million times, and sometimes people will take it, but most times people won't. And it's very deflating and disappointing.
I know. You just got to remember the times that they do, though.
Oh, I do. Yeah. I'm very grateful. And know what? Those people keep working with me.
Yeah.
They do. Cool. I'm like, I made a list last night of 2 projects I'm doing next. And I made a list, and they were all the people that stepped up and did a great job. And they're going to be on the next shows.
Yeah, it pays off.
Yeah. But you're right. No, I'm a very positive person, and I'm always thinking the positive, and I'm like always hoping that everybody else will. I don't do well with negativity on any level. I don't like it. And it's just I just hope this continues on, and we are able to perpetuate our industry, and there's great people that we can hire and bring in and pass the baton to, because it's very important.
I think so.
Yeah.
For links to see more about our guests, go to our Instagram at The Last Looks Podcast or our website, thelastlookspodcast.com. If you want to keep up with new episodes being released, be sure to subscribe through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google Play, YouTube, or any podcast streaming platform. And remember, if you're enjoying the show, share it. The Last Looks Podcast would like to thank Brett Stanley and Sabrina Castro. The song Fun Time by DJ Quads. Thanks for listening. Until next time.
That's a wrap, people.